we move on to this topic of who takes the leadership role in the Braves locker room. Now, going back to October, Spencer Strider talked about this where there needs to be accountability. This team's super talented, and I think it resonated with fans who were frustrated. I think Spencer Strider became a fan favorite in that moment. Your thoughts on how you kind of feel like this thing goes from here? They've lost Ron Washington. Who takes this leadership role? Because one of the biggest questions was if you're going to lose Freddie Freeman, if you're going to lose Dansby Swanson, how much more can you afford to lose of this core to where it falters? Are we beginning to see that downfall in your opinion, or is this something where someone has to step up this year to kind of grab that by the reins?
Yeah, I do think someone's got to step up because you just look at the Philadelphia series and, the whole, the Arcia, laughing at Bryce Harper, that getting out, which to me, I mean, worse things have been said. But to see how Braves players handled that was kind of alarming, right? You had Travis d'Arnaud just getting pressed by people or getting pressed by the media, and he was just not having it. And in that moment, it felt very soft to me. But that being said, I look at guys like Strider that could definitely take that role. Austin Riley, a guy who's been there for forever and is, had guys before him, the veterans before him that could help take that role. But it's just so interesting, right? Because I feel like a locker room has to have different types of guys, different types of roles. I mean, you look at the 21 roster. You had the serious leaders, right, with Freddie and Dansby, but even then you had guys like Jock Peterson that just said, I don't care what anyone says about us, like F it. We are those MFers, right?
Yeah,
like that. Yeah. That's something that I felt like that style, and I would say less Dansby and Freddie. I would say more Jock types are needed in that locker room. That's kind of my take on it because. Look, people are saying, the Braves didn't get far because they were missing the leadership of Dansby Swanson and Freddie Freeman. They lost many playoff series with those two guys on the roster. So I don't know. I just don't think that it's those types of leaders that are needed. I do think it's the more Jock types. But I don't know. It's just an interesting dynamic right now that I would say, and I wonder if that's something that Anthopoulos is even. I'm sure he's looking at it. But
I feel like
it's going to be interesting to see who he signs.
I feel like with a pulse on the roster and the way that AA kind of has constructed this, I feel like he does have that idea. Another name that we didn't mention, you had Jock. I will never forget that 2021 season, a guy who's now managing in the big leagues, Stephen Vogt, a guy that I remember the story that I think Jock told of like, guys, let's just chill out. Like, let's just go out there and have fun. Like, you had a lot of guys that were uptight. Maybe they were young, nervous, whatever. And then you had like the Grizzly vet and Stephen Vogt, who, look, he hit that. I think he had a 2 home run game, pulled his hammy, didn't play the rest of the year. Like, it was one of those things. But having that guy in the locker room, Logan, I'm with you, man. Like, you kind of need some of that. I mean, just lack of better word, screw you. I mean, F you attitude that to kind of get you at that point. Because look, Philly has it. Like, they got Castellanos, who just kind of says, "I don't care. Like, we're just going to go out here and have. We're better than you. We have that killer mentality." I did not feel like even as good as the Braves were this year, they had that killer mentality. I didn't see it. I thought that they were really, really good. Ronald Acuna Jr. has a lot of flair, and I get that 110%. But when push comes to shove and you have, a couple key moments from that 21 run, Jock, the big catch that he had in right field, the home runs that he hit, the specific one I was in the building for against Max Scherzer in that NLCS to get the Braves back in that ball game in game 2. Then you go Jorge Soler, who we have to remember missed an entire playoff series because of COVID, comes back and not only hits one literally that still hasn't landed in Houston, but he just has that mentality. You cover sports, I cover sports for a living. When you get around teams that have that mentality, it's different. Like, I know you've seen that and I've seen that. It's like, okay, this may not be the most talented group, but Logan, honestly, the World Series this year wasn't the 2 most talented teams. And I think Atlanta's got to find a way to kind of capture that again.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned it. I mean, you look at just the way that the season went. The Braves didn't really face a whole lot of adversity this
Mm,
season. I look at, I mean, just the regular season, the way it went. Did it ever really feel in doubt, the NL East title? I don't think it ever
no.
really felt in doubt. So you get a lead like that, and look, I'm not going to pretend to know what goes on in a clubhouse. I'm not a professional baseball player, right? My baseball career ended in middle school, right? So but at the end of the day, I look at just the adversity that wasn't really there for the Braves the
Yeah.
whole season, and then you run into Philly, a motivated Philly team in the playoffs. They punch you in the mouth, right? And what do you do to answer? I genuinely thought after the walk off and Harris's catch, like all of that, I thought, okay, like they found their mojo, they found their swagger again, and then it just for some reason wasn't there the rest of the series.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Part of me wants to look at that Philly series as a fluke, but I think because it's a and by fluke, I don't necessarily mean like the results on the field because Philly absolutely outplayed Atlanta. I meant more so just mentality, the way the Braves played on the field. I think that series does not describe or define the Braves as a whole. So I don't know. I look at that. I do think you learn something from that series, but also you wonder how that changes the guys who are in that clubhouse. I wonder how they
Yeah.
view things differently from last season. That's gonna be a question that I would love to see asked.
You mentioned from this year to even last year. I mean, let's go back to 22. Okay, so you did have to fight for your playoff lives. You did have to do certain things to get in.
Yeah.
You still got in, and you still got it handed to you. I mean, we're just being frank, honest here. You still
Yeah.
got it handed to you. So that for me is why the question is when we say who takes the leadership role. Yeah, you're going to have Austin Riley. You're going to have Matt Olson. Like I attribute Matt Olson a lot to like Nick Markakis was. Not big, not big words wise, actions, kind of leading by the
Right.
actions. But then you've also got to have the guy. And look, just be real here. I think Acuna and Arcia and Albies can be those guys. They've got to grow up. Like they have to grow up emotionally. Being a leader in the locker room is being what Jock was, understanding there's a time and place and being able to have your pulse on that. One, Jock kind of earned his keep with who he was and what his resume said. Arcia hasn't been there yet. Look, yeah, Ronald Acuna's the
Mhm.
best player in baseball, it felt like, but he hasn't necessarily, I don't think, earned the keep of being in that moment before because he wasn't there 2 years ago. So for me,
It's
Logan,
true.
it's not that it's not there on the roster. It's can you bring in a veteran guy who doesn't necessarily even have to contribute that much on the field, but understands what it takes to win in the locker room. I will say, we talk about the leadership role. Travis d'Arnaud to me is that guy. Like he is a guy that I could see as a leader even when he's not playing. But I would like to see them add a
Yeah.
bench piece. Maybe it's a 36-year-old that like pinch hits every 2 weeks, but he understands what you have to win. Because I don't know, man. I think that we just missed that the past 2 years, and in two different situations. Like I said, you played with your backs against the wall. You were 10 games
Yeah.
out 2 years ago. You came in on fire, and you just flamed out. This year, like you said, it was never in doubt. Like what was it in doubt on April 4th, and then from then on, you were just kind of like, okay, let's keep playing.
Right.
That for me is like I think that would be if Atlanta's to win the World Series next year and there's a player like that on the roster, to me, that's one of the most underrated signings or acquisitions of the offseason.
Yeah, just bring Jock back. I mean that could be a route that I wouldn't mind. I mean, you have a hole in left field, and granted, Jock is not he's not a defensive guru. He never will be, but that didn't stop the Phillies from putting Nick Castellanos in left field. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That could be a route that I wouldn't mind at all. I don't think it would be super expensive either.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on leadership, where you think it comes from?
None that I could think of, but no, I think that's going to be the biggest question mark next season because I do believe that's the number one thing that was questioned about the Braves after the Philly series was leadership. And yeah, I think fans, I mean, myself included, wanting to know what the heck happened.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but it is there are a lot of opinions on social media about leadership and you know passing the buck, blaming whoever. But truthfully, it's just a bad series, and you got to move on to this year. The Braves are still set up extremely well. I think they still, regardless of, if they don't make another move this offseason, I still think they have the best roster in baseball, and I still think they're set up the best in baseball just because of the contracts, the roster, the way it's constructed. I legitimately think they could go back and with the same roster and still compete for a World Series. I legitimately do.
Yeah, I think all of that and what we've talked about today is what takes you from competing to being in the World Series. I think, and
Right.
that month stretch of everybody's good, everybody's playing their best baseball. What's going to separate you from the pack? And I think the biggest separation was guys with a mentality like Jock. I'm going to also say this too. Tyler Matzik, Will Smith, even as much as people couldn't stand Will Smith the regular season, that attitude in the playoffs. Will Smith's doing something right, ladies and gentlemen. He's won 3 straight World Series. So I mean, I don't know what it is. It's one of those
Bring
things,
him
but
back.
I don't know. Let's pump the brakes on
Yeah,
that
yeah,
part. But
let's, yeah,
but
yeah.
I do agree with you. I do agree with you. I echo that sentiment of we'll have to kind of see how it rolls. But hey, we appreciate you so much for tuning in, doing a fantastic job. Hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving, getting ready for the holidays. Logan, what is, as we round out this podcast, your favorite Christmas tradition that maybe your family does that you look back fondly on as you've gotten in? I was going to say to your older age. We're not we're not
Wow.
even 30 yet, but you know what I mean.
I gotcha. The Christmas movie marathon. I mean, that's
Ooh,
number one thing that I think of. Like, to me, my tier list of Christmas movies. To me, there's a 1A and 1B, and I still have not decided a favorite. But we watch Christmas Vacation and Elf every year, and those two are like they're S tier for me. Like, if I go a Christmas without watching Christmas Vacation, something has gone horribly wrong, and it is always funny. I don't care how many times I watch it, it's always going to be funny. But yeah, I wonder if there's something similar in the Koon household too. Was it Christmas Vacation for you guys too?
Christmas Vacation. I was a big Home Alone fan when I was younger too.
Yeah,
Loved Home Alone. So that's a good one. Elf is a classic. And it's crazy when I got married. When my wife and I got married, we didn't. Um, she didn't like Elf, and so now 2 years into our marriage, she loves it. So I guess I converted her to an Elf fan, to a Will Ferrell fan. It's a
there you
great
go.
movie. I might watch it tonight. We'll see. But hey, hope you have a fantastic holiday with your family. We're going to keep the episodes rocking and rolling. Winter meetings in full effect, and a lot of conversations to be had about this Atlanta Braves roster. Logan, Whaley, my name is Bryce Koon. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit us with a like, comment down below your thoughts on these topics as we continue to roll throughout the offseason. We'll catch you next time here on the Chopaholic, brought to you by the Crowded Booth.